What would need to happen over the next 7 days for you to look back on that week and feel genuinely proud of yourself? Not because something lucky happened, not because somebody praised you, but because you did what you said you were going to do. Maybe it begins with something as simple as waking up on time. You tell yourself, tomorrow I'm getting up at 7 a.m. The alarm goes off, you reach for your phone. You have two choices, get up or hit snooze. This time you get up. It might not feel like a major achievement, but it is one small win. More importantly, it is evidence. Evidence that when you give yourself your word, it means something. Imagine you had a friend who constantly made plans with you. Every time you agreed to meet for dinner, they either arrived 2 hours late or did not turn up at all. At first you might forgive them, then it happens again and again. Eventually you stop trusting them. Their promises no longer mean anything because their behavior has taught you not to believe them. For many people, that is exactly the relationship they have developed with themselves. They say they are going to wake up earlier, they say they are going to exercise, they say they are going to start writing, build the business, apply for the opportunity, or finally complete the work they have been avoiding. Then they do nothing. After enough broken promises, they stop trusting their own word. And that has a much bigger effect than most people realize. Because confidence is not only about believing that you are talented, attractive, intelligent, or capable. Confidence is also knowing that you can rely on yourself. It is knowing that when things become uncomfortable, you will still do what needs to be done. A lot of advice treats confidence as something you can create through positive thinking. Look in the mirror and tell yourself that you are successful. Write affirmations in a journal. Visualize the person you want to become. There is nothing wrong with any of that. But positive thoughts are weak when all of your evidence points in the opposite direction. You can tell yourself that you are disciplined, but if you repeatedly avoid difficult tasks, your mind knows that is not true. You can tell yourself that you are confident, but if you constantly retreat from anything uncomfortable, your behavior is telling a different story. Confidence is not built through words alone. It is built through evidence. Every action becomes another piece of proof about the person you believe yourself to be. Some of that evidence may have been building for years. Maybe you tried to speak in front of your class when you were young and everybody laughed. Maybe you failed at something important and decided that failure meant you were not capable. Maybe you were rejected once and turned that single experience into a permanent part of your identity. Those experiences can become thick layers of evidence. One positive sentence in the mirror is unlikely to remove them. You need new evidence, and new evidence comes from action. That is why action has to come first. When you already have a deeply negative view of yourself, your mind can dismiss almost any positive thought. You can think it, you can wish for it, you can try to believe it. But the story you already hold about yourself may immediately pull you back down. Instead of asking how you can feel more confident, ask a more practical question. What could I do this week that would make me respect myself more? Maybe you get up when the alarm goes off. Maybe you train 3 times. Maybe you finish the task you keep postponing. Maybe you publish something you have been afraid to share. Maybe you finally have the difficult conversation. The action doesn't need to be impressive to anybody else. It only needs to prove something to you. Pride should come from behavior, from the way you work, from the way you show up for other people, from the way you respond when nobody is watching. But before you can feel proud of yourself, you need to do something that gives you a reason. Start small. Suppose you want to leave your job and become a writer. You do not need to resign tomorrow. You do not need to write an entire book. You do not need to completely rebuild your life in 1 week. Could you publish 1 article every week for the next 3 weeks? Could you sit down for 30 minutes every morning and write? If you did that consistently, you would begin creating evidence that you are not merely someone who wants to write. You are someone who writes. Your identity often changes more slowly than your behavior. You may improve before you feel improved. You may become competent while still feeling like an imposter. You may become successful while still seeing yourself as the person who was struggling years ago. Your mind can take time to accept the evidence your actions have created. So do not wait until you feel like a different person before behaving like one. Act first. Allow your identity to catch up later. The problem is that modern life makes it incredibly easy to break promises. You can hit snooze. You can delay the difficult task. You can scroll through your phone. You can watch another video. You can tell yourself that today was unusually busy and that you will start again tomorrow. There is always a convincing excuse available. It is also easy to create an ideal version of your life that is almost impossible to maintain. You imagine waking up early every morning, going to the gym, reading, meditating, doing breath work, taking cold showers, eating perfectly, working for 10 focused hours, and never wasting a minute. Creating that life in your imagination takes seconds. Building it in reality takes years. The moment you create an unrealistic ideal, you begin comparing your current self with the person you think you should already be. That comparison can make you feel even worse. The answer is not to stop having ambition. It is to reduce the size of the first promise. Choose something small enough that you can actually keep it. Because every promise you keep strengthens the relationship you have with yourself, and every promise you repeatedly break weakens it. The frustrating part is that simply understanding this does not guarantee that you will change. You can hear the perfect advice at exactly the right moment and still do nothing with it. One person can hear a single idea and completely transform their life. Another person can consume hundreds of books, podcasts, and videos without changing anything. The difference is rarely the amount of information they have. It is whether they act on it. People who enjoy self-improvement often love thinking. They believe that one more book, one more podcast, or one more framework will finally solve the problem. But learning can become a sophisticated form of procrastination. You can learn about confidence without doing anything courageous. You can study discipline while continuing to avoid discomfort. You can watch videos about exercise without going to the gym. You can spend years preparing to start and never actually begin. Knowledge feels productive because it creates the sensation of progress. But knowing something is not the same as applying it. Whenever you learn a new idea, ask yourself one question. What will I do differently because of this? Does this idea change my behavior? Does it produce anything? Or does it simply make me feel informed? If the idea is that confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself, then choose one promise, not 10. One. You might decide that for the next month you will get out of bed when your alarm goes off. No snoozing, no negotiating, no lying there for another 20 minutes while telling yourself that tomorrow will be different. At the end of those 30 days, you may look back and realize that this is the first time in years that you have consistently done what you said you would do. That becomes evidence. You can track it on a calendar. You can mark it on a board. You can write it down in a notebook. But the tracking method is not what changes you. Keeping the promise changes you. Once that promise becomes normal, you can add another. This is where most people go wrong. They hear about somebody else's perfect morning routine and attempt to copy the entire thing immediately. Wake up at 5, go outside, exercise, journal, meditate, read, plan the day, avoid your phone, eat perfectly. They take every useful habit they have ever heard about and turn them all into promises. Then, within a few days, they break almost everyone. Now they have even more evidence that they cannot trust themselves. Instead, begin with a step so small that it feels almost impossible to refuse. Video games are designed this way. The first level is not the hardest. The difficulty increases gradually. If the first challenge is impossible, the player gives up. If it is too easy for too long, the player becomes bored. The challenge grows at a rate that keeps the player engaged. Personal growth should work the same way. The objective is not to create the perfect routine tomorrow. The objective is to still be following a good routine many years from now. When you extend your time horizon, tiny actions stop looking pointless. They begin to look powerful. Writing for 30 minutes does not seem life-changing. Doing it every day for 5 years might be. Going to the gym once does not transform your body. Training consistently for years will. Keeping one promise does not instantly make you confident, but keeping hundreds of promises changes the way you see yourself. Most meaningful progress is almost invisible at the beginning. You work, you practice, you publish, you train, and for a long time, nothing appears to happen. Then the layers begin to accumulate. The results become visible. From the outside, it can look sudden, but it was not sudden. It was built through small actions that seemed insignificant at the time. Confidence develops in exactly the same way. It is not one dramatic breakthrough. It is a stack of evidence. You make a promise, you keep it, then you make another. You keep that one too. Eventually, you no longer need to convince yourself that you are disciplined, capable, or reliable. You know it because you have proof. So ask yourself the question again. What would need to happen over the next 7 days for you to look back on that week and feel proud? Choose something small, make it specific, turn it into a promise, and then keep it. You do not need to become a completely different person tomorrow. You only need to start proving that your word means something.